One of my favorite companies has always been GitHub, and I always joke that most of my clothing comes from their shop. They've been going through a lot of changes lately, and some of them have to do with GitHub Copilot. Recently, they announced that they have reached 20 million users just in GitHub Copilot, and they're moving to become a little bit tighter with Microsoft under their Core AI thing, or Core AI group, I guess they call it. The weird thing is that they've also been building a lot of really good AI tools that I think are not as much noted as some of the other things that we've seen in the industry. So today, I'm super happy to be talking to Barbara Forbes. She's a GitHub Star as well as an Azure Field CTO at OGD and a Microsoft Azure MVP, plus a whole bunch of other letters. How are you doing, Barbara? Good to see you.
I am good. Thank you. How are you?
Very, very good. Can you talk a little bit about your role at the different places that you're involved with? Because I know that I wasn't too aware of all the lettering. So maybe you can explain
Yeah.
all the things that you do.
All the three-letter abbreviations there. Yeah. Yeah. So my main job is being a field CTO at OGD, another
Mhm.
three-letter abbreviation. Keep them going. Which basically means that I am involved of the strategy, the technical strategy that we have for our company. We are an IT service provider. I am also involved in knowledge sharing within the company. We're a big company for the Netherlands, we're like 1,200 people. And that's a big part of my day job. And then at night, no, that's just kidding. But I am an Azure MVP, so I always forget what the MCT stands for. Uh, no, I'm
The MVP, the most valuable player at Microsoft,
yeah.
or is it, yeah, the
I am MCT, MVP, I
yeah,
am
yeah, I
messing
know.
up my own abbreviations. I'm getting confused.
That's
I
right.
think
That's
it's
right.
the most valuable professional officially, but it's a program where people are recognized that there are a lot of involvement in the community. So I've done a lot of open source stuff like that, and I do a lot of talking at conferences,
Mhm.
which I'm very happy that I get to do that. That's
Yeah, then
also
you also became GitHub Star. So what is that all about? Is that similar to the MVP program?
It is a similar program. It's specific to GitHub, of
Mhm.
course. It's a lot smaller than the MVP program. So I'm not sure of the latest statistics, but I don't think we are over 100
Oh
worldwide
wow,
at this
wow.
point. It's a
Mhm.
small group, and we get to be involved with what GitHub is doing, the new products that are getting out there, getting feedback loops there,
Mm.
which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
It's
I know
I
it's a great company, as you can tell by my clothing. I think even with my undershirt is like a GitHub shirt. I'm telling you, I'm not kidding about the 30%. I think it might be 40.
Yeah,
Uh,
they have such cool clothing.
yeah, they
Yeah.
have great clothing. So just happens that I really have bought a lot of it. So I usually show up with a big budget at the GitHub Universe conference. But in you mentioned OGD and how you deliver IT solutions, and we've heard a lot of stats about this rise of AI usage. Kind of going from individuals bringing AI into their own companies to just the company kind of going institutional with their knowledge and sharing it with this AIs. What sort of trends are you seeing out there in terms of how people are using AI?
I always love to start with my customers with being like, "Have you heard of AI? That's going to be quite big." It's all we have been talking about for the
Hmm.
last 2 years, pretty much. And it has been a real hype. And like with all hypes, it is now reaching that stage where the bubble of it is going to change our whole world and fix everything is kind of
Hmm.
bursting, maybe. But we are now finding out what it actually can do. So it's not gonna create rainbows for you or stuff like that. It will make you more productive.
Hmm.
And I really like seeing in regular office spaces that you see with things like the Copilot for Microsoft 365. Oh, are you still there?
I'm still here. Still here. Just hiding myself to put you in focus there for a
Ah.
second.
I had lost you over there. No problem. So with things like the Copilot for Microsoft 365, um, it's really making a difference now. And I'm talking with my coworkers that have access to it, like how do you use it? And we're getting to the use cases and the business cases where it is actively saving time. And what I really like is that there is a whole family of different tools coming up. And all these different tools have different purposes and have different, can you say talents? I'm really weary with humanizing the AI. I believe it can be a problem to think is your best friend, and I think we've all seen that with the launch of GPT-5.
Yeah, the web like lost it. Everybody wanted their friend back, right?
I don't know if you follow the Reddit on ChatGPT, but I was amazed with the amount of people who feel like I'm missing my best friend.
That is something else. Yeah,
All
that was a
right,
really
all
weird
right.
moment that people, and I think that like as you mentioned, the different tools have, what you could call different personalities, and people kind of get really used to the personalities. I was really happy with GPT-5 because I have a lot of system prompts that try to, erase any personality at all. Just give me the facts. All I want to know is how to do something. I don't really need you to tell me how amazing I am when I'm just asking you, about a tool. So that was
What a
really
great question.
yes, I know. You're amazing. What that's a thoughtful. Yeah, I know. It's so crazy to do that.
But
But you are seeing it a lot of adoption. And I do like one thing that I think people don't know about Copilot is that it is really built to house, if people tune it correctly, your institutional knowledge. So you can ask questions in the work tab about, your company, which I think is kind of unique to a lot of other tools. They may give you some connectors to like your Gmail or something else, but the ability to query, the company data is really just, I think, next level.
yeah,
And I don't think they get enough credit for that.
and I think I love that when especially during first adoption, I have been using it for about what would it be, a year and a half now, I think. So I was pretty early. And one of the first things that pretty much everyone who started using it used was to search for files.
hmm hmm
And at this point, I don't care where I drop my files. I don't have a folder structure anymore. I drop everything at the root because if I can't find it, I'll ask Copilot where it is, saying, "Hey, I did a presentation on that and that weird date.
hmm
Where can I find it?" And it will give it to me.
And I love that you
And
can also sort of like not just ask where is it, but you can tell it to do something with the data. So I love telling it, hey, I have this like Google Sheets or spreadsheet somewhere, and I need you to go through and extract all the data from July and tell me something about the data from July. It's almost like I don't even have to go into the spreadsheet anymore. I can get some analysis of a specific range from the data, which is really changing how I work.
in Copilot, though, you really have to be careful that you're using the right agent.
Yeah,
If
that's
you're
true.
using the wrong agent and you give it an Excel sheet and you ask data for it, it's gonna make stuff up.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. That's right. So let's
Yeah.
switch over to just and this, I know we talked about this being a little confusing, how you have Microsoft who adopted Copilot as their name from everything, and that
Oh,
name came from GitHub, who also has a little bit of a naming problem. So we have
the
Copilot and we have Copilot Spaces and we
the
have
naming is a disaster. And you
yeah,
have to realize the very first Copilot was the GitHub Copilot. It was
that's
the
right.
very first one to be released. And then Microsoft got the bright idea to just create Copilot, and that was supposed to be the one in the browser.
Correct. It's a good name. Like I love the name Copilot, but then when everything became Copilot, that got
It,
confusing. And
it
then when
got so
GitHub, yeah,
confusing. And
and
then GitHub
mhm,
decided, oh, we're gonna have like spaces, and we're
right,
gonna
right.
have code spaces. Oh, we have code spaces already, but we're gonna have spaces, and it has nothing to do with code spaces.
That's right. Yes. So we have like this Copilot that you can access, and it's kind of nice because you can really pull it up in a couple of different ways, right? We have
Mhm.
basically the Copilot, which looks like a Chat GPT for coding, right? And that takes you to all
Mhm.
these different kind of features here. but in reality, it's sort of like just a regular sort of ChatGPT for developers, and you can hit like attach here and attach a specific repository, and then have a conversation with that repository, or you can call up a space. A space is like a sort of like a custom instruction for a task that you're doing. And I'm always pretty happy that they let you pick the models. It's almost
Yeah.
just amazing how many you can pick, and you can even choose like Opus 4.1. You have the new ChatGPT 5 models, and so I'm always pretty impressed that they are allowing you to use anything. But I think a lot of people don't know everything that's in GitHub Copilot itself. How do you feel about how people are using it? Do you feel like people understand all the different pieces, or how are you seeing it kind of in your company?
I by the way, I love that this gives you the opportunity to compare models.
Mm-hmm.
If you're new to the stuff, ask a question with GPT and then ask another question, the same question with Claude.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell the difference in how it's communicating with you, how it's solving your problem, stuff like that. I really like it to actually, I always tell people like, this is how you can tell really quickly what the differences between the models is and why you should care about it.
And they're shockingly fast about adopting like new models. Like I
Yeah.
know GPT-5 launched pretty quickly after it released. Same thing for Opus 4.1, which is the latest model. They even have their own, 4.1. ChatGPT has like a code focused model called 4.1 that's pretty good. I use it a lot for different things, and it's also obviously one of the cheaper models out there. So how do you feel about like just the usage itself? Have you seen kind of people get into Copilot itself, or you feel like not enough people kind of even know that it's there?
I feel like people know that it's there, but they're still skeptic about it.
Yeah, yeah,
I
maybe
get
they don't even know there's like a lot of different places that you can use it too, which is I don't
Yeah,
know if you know
and
that.
we have a few different reasons why people can be skeptic. Like
Yeah.
some people tried it out when it first started out, and at that point decided, oh, this is no use,
Yeah.
and then gave up. And like it has been changed so much. And I know that I came from environments where people use tools like PowerShell and Bicep, so the
Mm-hmm,
system
hmm.
administrators. Yeah, Copilot was not that good at it because it is based on the code that is stored in GitHub, and there's a lot of very ugly PowerShell on GitHub because PowerShell is a very forgiving language.
Hmm.
So you can type out anything and it will be ugly, but it will work.
Hmm.
And a lot of people have written a lot of really bad PowerShell, and that's the training that it
Right.
got. So in the starting, it was a disaster. But times have changed, the models have changed, and it's such a shame. And I see this with every AI, by the way, where people are like, "Yeah, I tried it once and it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
Try it again. It has been improved so much."
That's true. That's true. I know that if you haven't tried it in the last few months, you should definitely do it again, just
Mhm.
because everything's changing so fast, and the new models are so much better. And I think too, once you understand how to give the models context so that they don't sort of recreate or go the wrong way after you start on a specific project. One of the things I love about the GitHub Copilot is that whenever you're in any repo, it has this mode called assistive that you can use, and it
Mhm.
lets you just pull up sort of a little side window here, and then you can just ask it a question. Tell me about this repo, and it can help you solve small problems. So I love to use it for things like readme files. I
Mm.
actually, most of my readme files are they come from this feature right here.
Yeah.
So I tell it, hey, update my readme file. That's pretty cool. Or say that it's embedded into things like release notes. So if I'm making a release, then I used to really uh,
Yeah.
dislike writing these, but
Yeah.
because it's built into the GitHub itself, when you draft a new release, it will actually look at all of the, commits that you have done, and it will just build you this release notes. Like, it's so good at doing that. So that's a huge time saver for me. And then if I'm doing like, what else do I do? Change logs or something like that. It's real. I don't know if I have a change log in. Yeah, I have a change log file. So again, it could just go through and, make a beautiful change log. I mean, I feel like, I don't know about you, but using these tools, I feel like it takes care of a lot of the things that I didn't like doing, so that I can kind of focus on the stuff that I really like, which is kind of solving the problem.
Yeah. So it can really help with what we call the boring stuff, the boring, scary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I think in these last months, recently, it has really become something that can really do the work for you.
Yeah.
Like in the agentic mode, especially the Copilot agent. So we have the agentic mode in the chat, but we also have Copilot agents, and they're not the same thing.
Correct.
Not going well with the naming there. But it means that when you create an issue, you can just assign it to Copilot. And Copilot will start fixing it for you and then ask you for a review.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it.
Scared of doing it. I don't know about you. Like, I'm always like, if I let it do all the work, is it going to do a good job? And I think that I have found that it does. It's really, like you said, gotten a lot better. And it seems to just really do a decent job. I'm been pretty impressed so far.
Yeah, it's doing pretty well. And I feel like this is where some developers will probably be like, yeah, but that's the fun thing. It's writing the code for me.
Okay.
And it's kind of true. But
Maybe there's people that like doing release notes. Like they really.
no one likes doing release notes, but you do want to create the code
Right.
and solve the problem that an issue presents.
Right.
But I must say, what I have been doing, because I think with AI, that's also one of the things that we need to recognize. Like, we need to save time with AI, and one of the ways that we can save time is by not babysitting it. If we're watching it work, we're still not saving time because we're spending time with it. And my challenge for the last week is I have been creating an app in the background. So I have been doing other stuff, and on my second screen, I have a Copilot agent and giving it orders and reviewing what it has created.
Wow.
And it's sort of, I wouldn't recommend doing this in your daily work because it's sort of distracting.
So we call it YOLO mode. You only live once. Like, hey, let it do its thing.
Oh yeah, but also this is not production in any way. So I was stuck in a pull request where it just wasn't reaching its goals, and at one point I was like, okay, you're probably good, YOLO, and I merged it with the main branch. It still didn't fix the issue. And that happens, and you make a mess, and you have fun with it, and it almost feels like when you start learning how to code.
And that's just the thing, like, it's GitHub, so if you make a mistake, you can always roll back, right? That's
exactly
why, that's the great thing. And I do like, if you go to this Copilot, then there's this section right here where you can actually create an issue, and then you can, just give it some instructions. Here's kind of what I want to do. I want to fix this, or, you don't necessarily have to start with an issue. You could just say, so actually, there you go. All I did is create an issue, and it's given me a new issue draft, so I can start working with it here and just telling it sort of what I want it to do. And then it will go try to take care of that issue, and then issue a pull request, and then you approve the pull request. It's a really different way to work. So I don't know if everybody has tried it, but it is really good. So like for my website, I built out, so I have this website that I do, and what I wanted to have is I wanted to have these YouTube videos here, and I wanted to build this little sidebar, basically a widget. I saw some, none of them did kind of what I wanted them to do, which is kind of do these drop downs and automatically pick up all my YouTube videos. And I did this whole thing vibe coding, just telling the computer, hey, this is what I want to do. And then once I did it, I decided, hey, I want to kind of submit this as an official WordPress, sort of, what do you call it, a module. So now when you do that, you have to have all this infrastructure around it. So you have to go to WordPress and you have to download this like checker that checks that your files are done the right way. And I really enjoyed using agents to take care of those things. Like, hey, here's what I'm supposed to be doing. And they're supposed to have a very specific structure on how you build things and make sure you have all these kinds of different files in folders and subfolders, and sort of like project definitions. And that's what it did, because the normal sort of code for the actual functionality would have been something that I could do pretty easily. But the fact that it was able to build the infrastructure, which I wouldn't normally want to have done, through just giving it, issues and agents and throwing agents at it, was really just life-changing for me. Just the ability to create the issue, just tell it what I want, or paste it like, on that particular WordPress checker. It gives you basically, here's the problems. And so I would just give that to the agent. I would say, go fix these. And then I would try it out, and it would work. I was like, wow, that's great. It did all the stuff that some things I didn't even know how to do, obviously, because I never structure files in that way. And that's just like, that's so different, I think, right?
And it's going to take you from the level where you're probably, if you didn't have a Copilot, you would probably be like, okay, never mind. This is
That's
too
it.
much work.
Exactly. Exactly. I would have never done it. Like I don't have time for that. I have time to build my own little tools, but if I want to like release them formally, then they need to have like a license. They need to have like a README, a change log, a release notes, and then for WordPress modules, it's so many files that I'm like, okay, if I wanted to just use it for myself, yes. And that's really one of the greatest things about these agents. And you can see here that you can also take a look at things directly from here, and also take a look at pull requests and do things here. So there's a lot of stuff. And you usually start by, so it depends on where you're at. If you're here on the regular home, you can attach and tell it to focus on a specific repository, right? So say, here's my Flex videos, the one that I was just telling you about. And then I can ask a question, or I can say, one of my favorite things is something like, how can I improve this project? And when I do that, it's just going to go through my repo, and then it's going to tell me, here's a few things that you could do. And then I can start a pull request, or start an issue on some of the things that it's telling me. Maybe say I want to improve my documentation and support. Maybe I can do something like this. Let's work on documentation and support. Can you be more detailed? And maybe this is something that I would want to now bring into into a pull request, and go back home and say, well, I want to create an issue, and now I just paste that into the issue, and it'll go through, and it'll take care of that for me. So one of my favorite things, tell it, hey, find either a way of improving something. So now I can just like go in here, paste in here, something like that. Docs and support, right? And then I hit create, and then it's going to go through and work on taking care of that. And there it goes. It's, launching something. And you can also, the other cool thing is, you don't necessarily have to go through that whole GitHub Copilot. You can find an existing repo that you're working on. So let's see. So maybe something like this. And if there is an issue in there, then you can actually just assign them to the Copilot, and it will go take care of those. So some typos that are not visible, check that this project has no typos, and just assign them to the Copilot. And then, like you said, you go do something else, whatever other thing you were doing, and it will take care of that. That's pretty awesome.
And this one is so powerful that you can make really silly issues. Because I always try to get it through the limit. Your issues can be really silly, really humanized, not described actually the solution or anything, just describe the problem like a user would do, saying, my computer is kind of slow.
Yeah.
And it will fix stuff.
Right. Yeah, you can be like a human being. It's almost like you can what I like to call it is sort of like brain dumping. I just like to
Yeah.
tell it things. Like, I don't even worry about whether I'm being organized in my thoughts. I just start typing, like, here's what I think. Do this, do this. I would look to have this feature. What about this? And I don't even clean it up. I just go, okay, send, and let the computer kind of give you, okay, here's a plan for how to accomplish that. It catches, like, it's great at spelling mistakes, which I do all the time. And it's great at understanding sort of what I was trying to say. And I don't have to be as detailed sometimes. So of course you can review everything. You can see all the diffs and everything. So it's a really cool tool. I do wish more people knew about the agents mode and the spaces, because they're so cool. So spaces, like, as I mentioned, there's just a way of adding, I don't know if you play with this a lot, but they're a way of adding additional context. So one of the problems that I have is these agents, if you tell them to do something, and if you're like me and you like to just tell it something simple, like build me a Tetris game, or do this, or create a WordPress module, if you don't kind of focus them by giving them system instructions, they'll randomly do it differently every time you ask, right? Or they'll start doing something, and then a little bit later you ask them to do an update, and it's like they decide that they're going to rewrite everything, right? They're like, oh no, well, now I need to rewrite. Now I'm going to use like a different different library than what I was using. That's really frustrating. So this is just a way of kind of helping the tool focus and telling it exactly what I want to do. So for example, for me, I do a lot of React, and in React, whenever I ask a vibe coding tool, or even the regular code spaces, to do something for me, it'll always use React 18, because there's much more React 18 out there. So I built this little just quick space to say, no, I want you to manage things with Vite. I want you to use Tailwind CSS. That's the library for the CSS that I want you to use. Here's the font that I want, and I want you to load up the font like this. And always make sure that you use the guidelines for working with React 19. That happens a lot when the thing that you're trying to do is so new. And then when you're working with this project, then you can sort of call in the space. You'll notice here that there's like a little space sort of option, and it's basically a custom instruction that you just tell it, hey, use this because I'm working with this platform, and it remains focused like for the whole time. It's really a great feature. I think most of the tools that you use, like say Copilot, or the VS Code Copilot, or anything else, Cursor, they have a file that they let you save, and they're called different things, PRDs or whatever, but everybody seems to have their own version of this, like, system instructions. So I like that here it's there in a space, and it's something that I can share with the rest of my team as well, which can be really good. So I don't know if you've given spaces too much of a try, but I really love them for that. So what do you find, like, people starting to use things like system prompts when they're developing things to make their AIs like sort of focus a little bit more?
It depends on who you're asking. And because the AI does work when you just give it a silly prompt, and that might help people to not actually get into how can I make use of all the tools that are surrounding it. And we're seeing it more, of course, now with the custom agents and the power that prompts can give. And one of my recommendations for anyone is use AI to create those prompts and create those configurations.
Great tip.
I often, if I start vibe coding, I'm going to start with ChatGPT and saying, hey, I have this issue, create a nice prompt for me to vibe code. And Copilot in GitHub has started doing that, actually. It has started now with when you first create or assign a pull request to Copilot, it will then say, hey, you could put a configuration file into your repository to tell me what is going on in this repository. Shall I create it for you? And I'm like, that's good. You can do that. And
yeah, exactly. So even something like this, I want to create a React project or whatever it is, PowerShell project or anything else. Help me come up with some good system instructions. ask me a lot, and that's the key. I always say, ask me lots of questions, because I
Yeah.
won't even know what it is that I have to know to do this, so I can create a PRD. And it's, again, so because the Copilot is also happens to be just like ChatGPT, you can ask it a generic question like this, and then it will respond to you. Absolutely. So, and then it's just gonna ask me some of these questions. And then I can fill them out, and I can even tell it kind of ask me the questions one by one, and then it will have, sort of help me. So I should have said something
1
like,
second.
me these one by one, right? And then then it's not so much. So then I like one by one, as opposed to give me this huge sheet of things, and then I can just keep on answering the questions, and then it'll build that definition, and then I can save that as a space, or just a PRD within. Again, I think the spaces are next. Is you can now have spaces for different tasks, and when you're using Copilot, you can sort of relate them to that task that you're doing, so that it understands how it's supposed to treat this project. Now, with React, for me, is make sure you're on React 19, Tailwind CSS, Vite for the sort of development tools that I usually use. So it becomes a better experience. I think, like you said, if people are using these things without and not getting good results, a lot of it has to do with you're not being clear enough about what the goals are, or clear enough about your instructions, so that the tool can remain focused.
It is always important to remember that if something is not clear to the AI, it's gonna fill the gaps. That's what it's gonna do.
Yeah. So
if you want it to ask you what the gaps are, you have to define that. Because it will not define on its own, like, you're not being clear enough. Okay, you're not being very clear, so I'm gonna make a whole bunch of assumptions. Basically, that's what the AI is doing. And if you don't want it to do that, you have to instruct it to not do it, and it will actually work.
So what are you finding? I'm sorry. What are you finding for people? Are they ready to give up some of this control? How much should they give up for the AIs? How do people feel about it currently?
Weary, and the people should be weary giving up all the control. We should have some sort of validation in there. And I really like the road that Microsoft is running in Copilot Studio, where they say you can define different workflows and define whether human intervention is needed. And I really like that one. And I think AI is still at the point where the pull request, like we say, they absolutely need a review. We should treat it like an intern. You would always review the code that an intern is creating. And we should feel like, how good is this intern at this point, and how important is that project? If it's a very important project, you're not going to give it solely to an intern. You're going to watch what it's doing. And I loved one of the examples I saw, where I had Copilot chat in agent mode, trying to fix stuff on my second screen, and I'm saying, yeah, sure, whatever, do your thing. And then I watched, and it actually said, so there was a problem with a connection to an Azure database. This was really fun troubleshooting, by the way, running stuff in Azure, because it's not built to understand Azure. It has an Azure plugin, doesn't always work that well. So if Azure was being a problem, then I would go to Claude or ChatGPT and say, give me a complete step-to-step instruction, because I don't feel like looking it up. And then I would give the instruction to the Copilot, be like, build this, or create the AZCLI commands to build this. So it was a really fun process, moving around between different agents. But what it did at one point, it had trouble creating a connection with a database. And I had set up the connection string in a key vault, because that's what you do. And it said, oh, I see it's connected with key vault, but maybe that's the issue. Let me just throw it out there in plain text. And it tried to commit that. And I said, you never commit. I said it, I talked to it like an intern. I said, you never commit a plain text secret to Git. And of course it said, you're absolutely right.
Oh yeah, it's GPT-4 then.
Yeah, this was this was Claude.
Oh, Claude. Yeah, that is. Yeah.
Claude. It's still the amount of times it says you're absolutely right, and it says perfect. I could have a really bad drinking game there, but I do really like how it's solving those issues. But that tells you like this is my project. There's no issue in there. If that key got into that repository, I will delete everything. There's no
Right.
production here. This is something where I would say to an intern, go do your thing. I'll see you at the end of the day and see what mess you've created. If this is production, I'm gonna keep an eye on it. I'm going to be way stricter and check what are you actually doing. And I think that's a healthy way of looking at it. Like it is an intern, it's inexperienced, it pretends to know stuff like interns do. Saying this, we've all been there, right? I mean, that's how you learn. I think you should see the fun in that. And you should check like if it's really an important project, yeah, you're going to have to keep a close eye on it.
Yeah, but I like what you're saying, that you basically are letting it do things and then kind of monitoring what it does, but also make sure that you help it or let it help you also. And you find a lot of ways that you can let it offload some of your work because it is good at a lot of stuff. Again, documentation or create, like searching things. Like you mentioned, you never really, like, I don't really search on the web anymore for things. I just tell the tools right there. There's a great search. And so, giving it context from the web, if I need it to focus on, say, a new feature that just launched that it doesn't know about. So it is like an intern, but it's like an intern with memory from like 6 months ago. It doesn't always have the latest. So you have to remember that. But, like, I feel like understanding the limitations is the key to learning to understand what sort of control you're giving to the tool. And I think that we're going through this really weird sort of process where developers are feeling a little bit unsure. You mentioned it's like an intern, so people are wondering, so what do we do? Do we even get interns anymore if this thing's going to be able to do some of the work? Yet at the same time, we're seeing that people are definitely getting paid more if they have AI skills. So what sort of advice would you sort of give to maybe either beginner developers or even people who have a lot of experience, but are maybe thinking about, hey, what's going to happen to my job in the future?
It is difficult. I think you need the experience to work with this stuff, and I think that's why GitHub Copilot, one of the first ones that became big, because it's one of the first one where it's only used by subject matter experts. It's used by people who know when it's going wrong, and you couldn't say that for ChatGPT. ChatGPT can give me advice on things I should not be doing, and with code, it is used by developers who know when to correct it. And those experienced developers will need to keep doing that, but also will need to find the fun in things like vibe coding. Because, like I said, I've been vibe coding now with this big application. I also made one with GitHub Spark. It's a very simple application, but I learned stuff about how it is connected with each other. I learned stuff about how the AI is working on it. And I get really excited when it's actually working, because sometimes it takes a while and it feels a lot like if you're creating code yourself. I mean, we all know that feeling like, why is this not working? And then after a while, suddenly it is. And you're cheering behind your computer when you still get the same feeling when the AI is actually creating stuff for you.
Yeah, so I built this little JSON to CSV converter, like a tool that I would normally have to go online somewhere to go check. And it didn't. I was really impressed at how good it was. I don't have a CSV right now, but if I just drop a file in here, the drag and drop works just fine. It converts the file, and it made a pretty decent design. I was very impressed with this. I had been testing a lot of vibe coders out there. So I did a course on Bolt. I did a course on V0. And one of the things that was unique was this theme that you can kind of choose like your different color scheme for your application. So it kind of includes a little bit of sort of design, which I think a lot of these tools are missing when it comes to this. And then you can go in and you can pick, like, say, this headline, and you can change the font family to like a serif family, or maybe make it like a lot bolder. So I really like the sort of design aspect of it, which I hadn't seen before. Yeah, it was actually pretty impressive. So what's your take on vibe coding? I know you mentioned that you are doing it a little bit. How do you feel about that? Because some people don't like the vibe coding. Some people do.
I really like it so far.
Mhm.
I think it has the potential to get you from an idea where you're like, I would normally not create this idea
Right.
because it would be on my to-do list. It has a downside because I have been making a few tiny apps for myself where I'm like, I did no research to check if this app actually already. So I think we're going to have a lot of very similar apps. And especially if we use it for stuff that is pretty small, I feel like, yeah, let's use it. The smaller stuff where it's not that big a deal if it stops working because you don't know what the code is. I do think we need to be critical, and I did a vibe coding thing where I actually started in Spark and then moved it to GitHub to get into the repository and check on all the code. And one of the first things I ask it is do a very thorough security scan on this code, which is also a very good issue to start off with. And it got some issues out of there that the vibe coding threw in. Stuff like that can happen. And what we will find out in this coming time is how it will run for companies and for enterprises. Because I think vibe coding is still in the gimmick phase. It's still in the phase where you're like, okay, I can create a fun little app with a very nice front end. I think the front ends that the vibe coding are creating are really impressive. And I have always mostly worked on backends and created really ugly front ends. And I feel like, okay, for me, it's creating stuff I didn't know I wouldn't be creating because I would have to get too involved. It would take too much time for me. And I feel, yeah, like if for the gimmick phase, it's going really well. And I'm really interested in how it's going to go beyond that.
Yeah.
How
So it's great, fantastic at prototyping. I mean, and really good for little personal things. I mean, like I said, I did use it to create that WordPress module, but it was a bigger process. It wasn't just vibe coding. It was, there's a way in which you can use these tools that is more what people call like agentic assistant coding, where you're really more involved. I think vibe coding is more about you sit down, you kind of have an idea, you just tell it the idea, and then it goes in and builds something, and then you kind of iterate on that idea. Whereas sort of like more serious agentic coding is you really do have a goal. Maybe it was a little cool idea at the beginning, and you really want to make it into a more professional project. One thing you mentioned was that the tools are also very good code reviewer.
I've lost your connection. Oh, there we go.
So we'll just do that again. So one of the things I like is the ability of the tools, to really assist you with coding and then be able to do more serious work whenever you need that. You could take it kind of, I think there's like a whole range of things that you can do with it. What I love is that code review feature that is in pull requests gives you another way of having, if you don't have anybody to look at your code really quick. I think it's actually really a great, you mentioned it a little bit, but I think it's actually quite a good code reviewer on pull requests that you could just kind of add as a checkbox. Yeah. And it often comes up with things that you weren't thinking about.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can use it to your own level of comfort at this point, and it's creating value. and
Absolutely.
people are getting into their ideas, and we have to find out what it's going to do to the world. I mean, in enterprises, it's not that different from the Power Platform.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I think a
So,
lot of people also know the struggle with the fun in the Power Platform, and that's the struggle that people create an app and then at one point leave the company or get bored with it, and then everyone is using it.
right.
And then it needs to be
And nobody
maintained.
knows how to update it.
Yeah, and it needs to be maintained. And
Right.
but then again, this happens also if it's not in citizen development. This
Hmm.
also happens with code. This happens
That's right.
everywhere because the technology is too much fun to not
Hmm.
work with it. And we need to find out how we're going to deal with that as an enterprise, as businesses. But
Hmm.
and right now, I feel like where AI is a lot at the point where it's providing the value to the consumers, and especially vibe coding. It's so new that I'm really curious
Hmm.
what it's going to do for
Yeah.
companies, what place it's going to have. Are developers going to use it? Are people that are currently not developers going to feel
Hmm.
free to make their own little micro solutions?
Yeah. I mean, when everybody really, even people who aren't developers, when they're able to pull up like a vibe coding tool, then Lovable or GitHub Copilot or Spark or
Mhm.
anything, what does that mean? Does everybody building prototypes now? Does that help
Yeah.
the relationship between developers and sort of product managers, because they now kind of see, or they can maybe create an app that's sort of what they're thinking, and they pass it along. I think that relationship between who does what and now that the tools can be good designers, I think one of the things that's missing is the fact that for developers who are not designers, this is the greatest thing ever. But designers are going nuts, going, none of this adheres to our design standards. Like, how do you keep things
Mhm.
consistent? How do we make sure that they have the proper, color structure, and that it's maintainable? Like, that part, I think, is everybody's getting excited at how good the design is of the vibe coding, but that part of that communication, I think, is still to be figured out. So thank you so much for coming. What else are you working on? What sort of things do you have going on right now with all the letters?
With all the letters. Yeah, so the AI is keeping me very busy. Like I said, I'm playing
Hmm.
around with those vibe coding, see what value it can be for our customers. I'm with, of course, we didn't talk about the letter for LinkedIn Learning, my instructions there.
Hmm.
I'm still really enjoying the rebrand of the course that I did on in the Git
Yeah, you
fundamental,
did the Git Essential training. That's a
Git
huge course.
essential training,
Yeah.
and
And I
I
know that
am
it says only 4,000 learners. Like, that's a lot. But if you
no,
look at your previous version, it's like almost 200,000 learners.
yeah, we did a rebrand this summer, and I am
Mhm.
so proud of that one. We recreated the whole thing, and you can now follow along with it completely on code spaces.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so you added code spaces
So
to it.
yeah, if you see them
That's
both,
pretty
I
awesome.
would recommend the new one.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
also it's updated. This one was recorded, I think, 2 years ago. And the new
Mhm.
one is so you can open a code space, and then you know that what you're seeing on your screen is exactly the same as what you see on my screen. So I made it to be very practical, and you can follow along with everything.
That's awesome. So I will have to watch that. I love sort of seeing what other people's perspective on it is. So yeah. So it's
Yeah,
really cool. I see the code space here. So while you're taking it, you can have a
yeah,
repo that you can refer to and practice some of the things, which is so critical for
yeah.
learning it. So super
And
awesome.
I found with Git, it's one of the things where when you're working with Git for a while, you forget how confusing it was when you first started out. I think
Right.
everyone who starts with Git is confused.
Hmm.
That's why I felt like I wanted to create a training that's really approachable and that understands like these are not easy concepts. We like to pretend they're easy because we're so used to them.
Yeah,
And to
merging and pull requests, like all those things are foundational to everything we do. And like you said, people immediately, once they know it, it just becomes part of everything that you do, and you don't think about how, you know, how people should learn it. So it is frustrating, I imagine, as a new developer walking into a place that already uses GitHub and you have no idea what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
this is a great course, and I'm glad it's doing so well for you. So thank you again.
Love
Yeah, hopefully we'll see each other, maybe a universe or somewhere else, and you'll continue your awesome work. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, talk to you later.
Bye.